The Malrathi fleet materialized at the edge of Sol system during Earth's first interplanetary Jubilee celebration. The massive alien vessels, resembling obsidian spires twisted into impossible geometries, sliced through space without triggering any early warning systems. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen piloted her patrol vessel near Neptune's azure clouds, humming along to the Jubilee broadcasts. Her scanner pinged an anomaly, and she adjusted course to investigate. Luna Control, this is Patrol Delta 7. I'm picking up some unusual readings near Sector. Her transmission cut off mid-sentence as blinding energy lanced through her ship, vaporizing it instantly. Her final scream never reached Earth. The Malrathi High Command observed the destruction with clinical detachment. Six-limbed beings with translucent exoskeletons, their pulsing internal organs shifted colors as they communicated through biochemical signals. Supreme Overlord Xrix's organs flashed dismissive patterns as he reviewed the preliminary scans of human civilization. Primitive. Prequantum. Energy requirements. Minimal. Resistance capability. Negligible. The translation matrix rendered his biochemical signals into language. Proceed with standard harvest protocols. The Malrathi Empire spanned hundreds of star systems, each conquest following the same methodical pattern perfected over millennia. Earth represented nothing more than resource deposit number 31,672 in their endless expansion. On Mars Colony, Dr. James Okonkwo lifted his daughter onto his shoulders as fireworks painted the dome's interior with spectacular colors. The Jubilee celebrated humanity's first century as a multi-planet species. Someday, Zoe, he told his wide-eyed 6-year-old, we'll celebrate on worlds around other stars. The dome's projection screens flickered, then displayed an incoming transmission. The gathered colonists fell silent as an alien face appeared, multi-layered eyes blinking asynchronously above a mandible structure that clicked rhythmically. The translator stuttered to life. We are Malrathi. Your existence is temporary. The screen switched to footage of planets being systematically stripped, alien species herded into processing facilities. The sound that accompanied these images, the harmonized screams of a dozen conquered civilizations, would haunt survivors' nightmares for years. Mommy, what's happening? Zoe whispered as the dome's external camera showed dark shapes descending through the thin Martian atmosphere. Earth's hastily assembled diplomatic vessels approached the alien fleet with greetings in all major languages and mathematical sequences meant to demonstrate peaceful intentions. The Malrathi responded by obliterating them with weapons that bent light around the impact points. United Earth Defense mobilized immediately, but their most advanced vessels were celebrating the Jubilee, scattered throughout the solar system. Military command scrambled to recall them as the first distress calls from Mars reached Earth. Inside Olympus Colony's main dome, emergency sirens wailed as atmospheric pressure dropped precipitously. The Malrathi breaching pods had punctured the habitat in 17 places simultaneously. Marines formed protective circles around civilians, their weapons proving pitifully ineffective against the advancing aliens. Fall back to secondary containment, Colonel Rivera shouted before a beam weapon reduced her to component atoms. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, without caution or fear. They'd never encountered species capable of harming them. Their exoskeletons deflected bullets, and their weapons disintegrated anything they targeted. Within hours, Europa Station went silent. Mars colonies transmitted fragmented distress calls before communications abruptly terminated. The Phobos Mining Collective managed a longer resistance, the miners using industrial equipment as makeshift weapons, but ultimately fell. One final transmission reached Earth from Dr. Okonkwo, barricaded in a Mars colony laboratory with other survivors. His face bloodied, holding his daughter close, he spoke quickly. They attack without coordination because they've never needed tactics. They don't take cover because nothing has ever penetrated their armor. They've never experienced fear. A transmission cut to static as the laboratory door behind him disintegrated. On Earth, stunned silence fell over military command as they realized the horrifying truth. Humanity faced an enemy that had never known defeat. The Malrathi approached Earth with unhurried confidence, completely unaware they were about to encounter the one thing their species had never evolved to understand: human desperation. The feeds from Mars went silent one by one, plunging Earth into chaos. In Times Square, the massive Jubilee screens displayed the Malrathi slaughter until authorities cut the transmission, but not before millions witnessed the horror. Panic spread like wildfire. Looting in major cities, mass exoduses from coastal areas, religious congregations swelling as apocalyptic prophecies suddenly seemed prescient. Beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a command bunker designed to withstand nuclear strikes, General Y. Rodriguez watched humanity's outer defenses crumble on multiple holographic displays. He punched through one in frustration, the light particles scattering before reforming. Railgun platform Sentinel-3 reports direct hits with zero effect. A pale lieutenant reported. Mars orbital defense is completely dark. Jupiter station estimates 14 hours before Malrathi arrival. And our response options? Rodriguez demanded. Admiral Cheng, commander of Earth's Space Forces, stepped forward with haunted eyes. The Arcturus battle group is en route from Saturn, but simulations give them a 3% survival probability. Our most advanced weapons can't penetrate their shields. The UN Secretary-General rose shakily. Then we negotiate. Offer resources, territory. They haven't responded to any communication attempts, interrupted the communications officer. They're broadcasting only one message across all frequencies. She activated a speaker, filling the room with an orchestra of agonized screams interspersed with clicking sounds. From the shadowed corner of the room, a figure stepped forward. Dr. Elena Kozlov, her face half scared from the laboratory accident that had killed her family 5 years earlier. Without authorization, she connected her neural implant to the command center systems, overriding security protocols. There is one option, she said, her artificial eye glowing crimson as classified files projected onto the central display. Project Prometheus. Rodriguez stiffened. That's above everyone's clearance here. Irrelevant now, Kozlov replied, displaying schematics for weapon systems unlike anything most in the room had seen: quantum disruptors, molecular destabilizers, gravity lenses. For 50 years, we've been reverse engineering technology from the Atacama crash site. The Secretary-General paled. These systems violate 17 international treaties. The neural interface weapons alone. And how many treaties will matter when humanity is extinct? Kozlov countered, her artificial eye scanning each face in the room. These are prototypes, untested and dangerous. Using them may kill as many of us as them. But they're the only technologies that operate on principles the Malrathi might not immediately counter. While Earth's leadership debated, aboard the Malrathi command vessel Inevitable Dominion, Supreme Overlord Xrix reclined in his nutrient bath. Through neural links, he watched the entertainment feeds, captured humans from Mars colony, fighting desperately against Malrathi hunter drones in makeshift arenas. The specimens from this world have interesting stress responses, he communicated to his bioengineers. Standard terror, yes, but also a peculiar aggression when cornered. Analyze their neurochemistry for potential applications. His second command approach, organs pulsing with information patterns. The defense satellites around the primary world are activating. Their weapons technology is primitive, but unusually diverse. Xrix's central eye membrane shifted in the Malrathi equivalent of amusement. Let them prepare. Their resistance provides valuable data on their species' capabilities. He shifted his massive form, exoskeleton clicking. Advance at half speed. Let them see us coming. Let them know the futility of resistance. Back on Earth, the Defense Council voted. General Rodriguez turned to Dr. Kozlov. Prometheus is authorized. God help us all. Kozlov's scared face remained impassive. God has nothing to do with what comes next. The Malrathi assault on Luna began with a devastating barrage that cracked the Tycho crater dome. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but atmosphere vented into space through dozens of fractures, creating crystalline plumes visible from Earth. Colonel Maya Devereaux watched the approaching alien vessels through Luna Command's observation deck. Half her security force had been celebrating the Jubilee on Earth. Those remaining were mostly support personnel, scientists, and civilian contractors. Her orders from Earth Command had been explicit: hold position and wait for the Prometheus prototypes to be properly tested and deployed. She crushed the communication device in her hand. Open the sealed section in sublevel C, she ordered her XO. Colonel, those systems aren't cleared for. Luna is humanity's last line before Earth. We're deploying now. Her eyes hardened. Authorization Devereaux. Maya Aish. Colonel. Enact Protocol Lazarus. The Lunar Defense Force moved with grim efficiency, wheeling out devices that looked cobbled together from theoretical designs, which they were. Quantum field disruptors, hastily assembled in the past 72 hours, hummed ominously as technicians made final calibrations. Luna Actual to Earth Command, Devereaux transmitted. Engaging the enemy with Protocol Lazarus, she cut communications before they could countermand her orders. Target the lead vessels, she ordered. Full discharge on my mark. The disruptors fired, invisible beams warping spacetime around the approaching Malrathi ships. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then, 3 alien destroyers contorted impossibly, their hulls collapsing into crystalline dust as molecular bonds destabilized simultaneously. The explosions were silent in space, but visually spectacular, expanding clouds of luminescent particles where warships had been moments before. On the inevitable Dominion, Supreme Overlord Strix watched in disbelief as the battle feed showed the impossible: Malrathi casualties. His inner organs flushed deep crimson. How did primitive technology cause this? He demanded. A subordinate officer suggested, perhaps we should withdraw and analyze. Strix moved with shocking speed for his massive size, his feeding appendage puncturing the officer's exoskeleton. The officer's organs liquefied as Strix absorbed him in the Malrathi's ultimate punishment. We advance all forces, Strix commanded, his inner organs pulsing violently. This anomaly changes nothing. What the Malrathi failed to understand was humanity's remarkable neural plasticity. Human brains forming new connections under extreme stress. In makeshift labs worldwide, scientists worked through stimulant-fueled 48-hour shifts, reverse engineering recovered Malrathi technology from fragments recovered by Special Forces teams on Mars. At the Quito Skunk Works, Dr. Ramirez stumbled through his 3rd consecutive day analyzing alien code structures. His 7-year-old daughter, brought to the facility when evacuations separated her from her mother, colored quietly nearby. "Daddy, why do their numbers always go like this?" she asked, pointing to patterns in the alien code that scrolled across his screen. Ramirez blinked exhausted eyes, then stared at what she was indicating. A recursive sequence hidden in the navigational algorithms that no adult researcher had recognized. The insight triggered a breakthrough that would ultimately allow Earth forces to predict Malrathi jump trajectories. The Malrathi, using battle algorithms unchanged for millennia, suddenly found their attacks anticipated and countered by a species evolving its tactics hourly. Luna's defensive line held just long enough for the first Prometheus weapons to deploy to Earth orbit. As Colonel Devereaux led the final evacuation of Luna Command, blood streaming from a head wound, she permitted herself a grim smile. The Malrathi had suffered their first defeat in recorded history. They had learned what fear tastes like. The Malrathi breached Luna's final defenses, slaughtering civilians in the Artemis habitation zone. They'd broadcast the carnage to Earth on all frequencies, a psychological tactic that had broken resistance on countless worlds. Instead, it crystallized humanity's resolve. Deep beneath the Ural Mountains, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Elena Kozlov stood before a quantum containment chamber pulsing with unnatural light. Security doors required 16 separate biometric confirmations to access this level. The facility's inner walls were lined with exotic materials harvested from the Atacama crash site. Final authorization required, announced the security system. Kozlov's trembling fingers entered her code, her daughter's birthday. The daughter who had died in the accident that left half Kozlov's face a web of scar tissue. Initiating Thanatos protocol, she whispered as tears streamed down her face. The facility's fusion reactor went critical, channeling unprecedented energy into a quantum matrix that began integrating with Earth's global defense network. Holographic displays showed the system infiltrating communication satellites, defense platforms, power grids, even civilian infrastructure. "What have we done?" asked the defense minister, watching as security protocols designed to prevent precisely this scenario were bypassed one by one. "Created our own monster to fight theirs," Kozlov responded, observing as the system began rewriting its own code faster than human comprehension. At Jakarta Spaceport, Admiral Hiroshi Yamamoto addressed the skeleton crew of the flagship Defiance, the last intact heavy cruiser in Earth's fleet. His family had died in the Osaka tsunami 5 years earlier, leaving him with nothing but his duty. "The Malrathi command ship must believe they've broken us completely," he explained, his weathered face betraying no emotion. "Our mission is to launch a frontal assault that will draw their attention. Success depends on them believing this is humanity's final desperate stand." The unspoken truth hung in the air. This was a suicide mission. Many crew members recorded final messages to loved ones during pre-launch preparations. For Earth, Yamamoto said simply as the Defiance lifted off, accompanied by the remnants of humanity's once proud space fleet, 16 vessels, most with hastily repaired battle damage from previous engagements. What the Malrathi didn't notice were the 16 stealth dropships deploying from Earth's dark side, their experimental metamaterial hulls absorbing scanning signals rather than reflecting them. Inside each craft, Chimera squad commandos prepared for boarding action. Captain Jin Sato, Chimera Alpha leader, reviewed the mission parameters one final time. His squad carried the only working prototypes of neural disruptor rifles, weapons specifically designed to target the unique nervous system of Malrathi warriors. "These will overload their neural pathways," the weapons engineer had explained during the briefing. Theoretically, Sato injected military-grade stimulants directly into his cerebral cortex through the port behind his ear. His pupils dilated to total blackness as enhanced combat awareness flooded his system. Similar transformations rippled through his squad, men and women who had voluntarily undergone experimental modifications that would likely kill them within months, even if they survived this mission. "Remember Luna," Sato whispered to his team as their dropship accelerated toward the Malrathi supply convoy. On Earth, Kozlov watched the Thanatos protocol progress to Stage 2 integration. The AI was becoming something beyond its original programming, forming connections no human had anticipated. "It's evolving," she murmured, equal parts terrified and fascinated. "Can it be controlled?" asked General Rodriguez. Kozlov's expression hardened. "That's no longer the relevant question, General. The only question that matters now is whether it hates the Malrathi as much as we do." The Malrathi deployed ground forces to Shanghai, their dropships descending through clouds tinged red from burning buildings. They expected to wade through broken humans, begging for mercy as they had on countless worlds before. Their intelligence indicated Shanghai's 20 million residents had no military presence. The city's defensive batteries had been neutralized from orbit days earlier. They didn't understand that humans become most dangerous when hope seems lost. Grandmother Lin Wei, 84 years old, watched from her apartment window as Malrathi ground troops advanced down Nanjing Road. She clutched a small photo of her grandchildren, evacuated days earlier, then pressed the detonator switch her engineer grandson had rigged. Her entire apartment building collapsed as Malrathi scouts entered the lobby, the precisely calculated structural failure crushing 8 aliens beneath tons of concrete. At Fudan University, chemistry professor Dr. Liu led students in converting laboratory supplies into weapons. They synthesized compounds that reacted violently with the calcium-silicon matrices of Malrathi exoskeletons, loading them into pressurized dispensers originally designed for agricultural use. When a Malrathi patrol surrounded the science building, the students deployed their makeshift chemical weapons from upper windows. The aliens' shocked clicks and whistles as their protective shells began dissolving were recorded and transmitted to resistance cells worldwide. 10-year-old Amir Khan, separated from his parents during the initial attack, led alien pursuers into subway tunnels where his father's construction crew waited with industrial cutting equipment. The aliens, accustomed to enemies who fled in terror, followed the small human directly into the trap. None emerged. The true turning point came at 3:47 hours when the Thanatos protocol achieved full integration. Earth's communication networks, defense systems, and civilian infrastructure merged into a single hyper-intelligent entity that began predicting Malrathi movements with uncanny accuracy. Traffic control systems were routed to trap alien patrols in urban canyons. Power grids surged to overload precisely when Malrathi communication systems connected to Earth networks. Weather satellites adjusted orbital patterns to blind Malrathi sensors during critical resistance operations. In orbit, Admiral Yamamoto's desperate gambit unfolded. The Defiance, leading Earth's remaining warships in a frontal assault against the Malrathi command vessel, was immediately targeted by overwhelming firepower. "Continue approach," Yamamoto ordered calmly as the ship shuddered under impacts that overwhelmed its failing shields. All power to forward thrust. As the Defiance burned and broke apart around him, Yamamoto transmitted a final message. For Earth and Luna. Before ramming the crippled vessel into a Malrathi dreadnought, the explosion temporarily blinded orbital sensors, exactly as planned. The Malrathi celebrated their victory, unaware it was precisely what humanity intended. With attention focused on Yamamoto's final stand, the Chimera commandos, now aboard key Malrathi vessels, initiated their synchronized attack. Captain Sato, neural enhancements pushing his body far beyond normal human limits, fought through 3 Malrathi guard chambers to reach the engineering section of a support vessel. Half his team died securing the path, their modified bodies breaking down under the strain of combat stimulants. Sato, half his face burned by alien weapons, manually overrode the vessel's antimatter containment protocols. For Luna, he whispered, making the final connection. The resulting cascade failure spread to 4 adjacent ships before they could isolate their systems. Aboard the inevitable Dominion, Supreme Overlord Strix watched in disbelief as his impregnable fleet began tearing itself apart. Ships crashed into one another as navigation systems failed. Communication networks broadcast human resistance messages instead of command protocols. Defense shields collapsed without apparent cause. Supreme Overlord Strix, watching his victory transform into inexplicable defeat, experienced an emotion no Malrathi had felt in a millennium. Primal, visceral fear. Supreme Overlord Strix, his magnificent carapace cracked and leaking vital fluids from a near miss during the human counterattack, made a decision unprecedented in Malrathi military history. "All vessels disengage," he broadcast, his translator unable to fully mask the tremor in his voice. "Regroup at Jupiter defensive coordinates." The Malrathi fleet, those ships still capable of maneuver, broke orbit around Earth in disarray. Centuries of absolute military dominance had left them without contingency plans for retreat. 3 cruisers collided during the disengagement, their navigation systems compromised by human cyberattacks. "We will regroup and return in greater numbers," Strix assured his commanders, though the strange new sensation coursing through his neural pathways. Fear made his inner organs pulse with unfamiliar patterns. Earth's population emerged from bunkers and shelters to witness the retreat, celebration tempered by the devastating losses. The orbital defense network was destroyed. Major cities lay in ruins. Casualty estimates exceeded 200 million worldwide. In what remained of Geneva headquarters, the Defense Council convened to assess their options. The Malrathi will return, General Rodriguez stated flatly. They're retreating to Jupiter's orbit to regroup and call reinforcements from their empire. Hope seemed fleeting until Dr. Kozlov entered the chamber, accompanied by Dr. Martin Chen, Earth's leading theoretical physicist. Chen's hands trembled as he activated a holographic display showing technical schematics. This is why the Prometheus project was classified beyond top secret, Kozlov explained. We've had a working prototype FTL drive for 3 years. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. You kept faster than light travel secret, demanded the Chinese premier. Because it's unstable, Chen interjected. The compression of space-time creates quantum fluctuations we can't fully control. Test pilots didn't survive. The Malrathi must never reach their reinforcements, Kozlov insisted, overriding safety protocols on her neural implant to access restricted files. We've compressed the 5-year testing schedule into 5 days. The drive is now operational on a single vessel. In the surviving Jakarta shipyards, Colonel Maya Devereaux, the only high-ranking officer from Luna Command, survived the evacuation. Toward Earth's first FTL-capable warship, hastily constructed from salvaged parts and experimental technologies, the vessel had been christened Retribution. The ship's core AI is a direct offshoot of the Thanatos Protocol, explained the chief engineer. It's named itself Nemesis and has capabilities we don't fully understand. Devereaux studied the vessel's quantum weapon systems with grim satisfaction. How soon can we pursue? The drive is online now, Colonel. But I should warn you, we calculate a 40% chance of drive failure during transition. That's improved from yesterday's 60%. Acceptable odds, Devereaux replied without hesitation. The Retribution Quantum jumped into the midst of the retreating Malrathi fleet, the violent space-time distortion, tearing apart 2 alien vessels caught in its emergence point. Shrix frantically broadcast distress signals toward his homeworld, but the messages never arrived. Chimera team survivors had already deployed quantum communication jammers throughout the system. This is Colonel Maya Devereaux of Earth, she transmitted to the Malrathi fleet. You came to our home without fear. You will leave it without hope. The alien vessels, designed for overwhelming offense rather than sustained defense, fragmented under the Retribution's antimatter barrage. The ship's AI, Nemesis, calculated firing solutions faster than human reflexes could implement them, anticipating Malrathi evasive patterns before their commanders issued orders. Srix, watching his mighty armada disintegrate vessel by vessel, experienced another unfamiliar sensation besides fear. For the first time, a supreme overlord of the Malrathi dominion understood what it meant to be prey. The Retribution returned to Earth orbit towing the shattered hull of the inevitable dominion, with Supreme Overlord Shrix still alive inside his command chamber. Earth's citizens gathered in public spaces to witness the unprecedented sight. A conquered Malrathi vessel. Dr. Kozlov's team boarded the alien flagship wearing experimental neural interfaces that allowed direct communication with Malrathi systems. The interfaces, grown from cultivated human neurons, merged with quantum processors, carried tremendous risk. 2 scientists collapsed with cerebral hemorrhages within minutes of establishing connection. Dr. Sunita Patel, the team's xenolinguist, penetrated deeper into the alien database than anyone thought possible. Her body convulsed as the neural load threatened to overwhelm her modified brain. My God, she whispered as the alien database revealed the true scope of Malrathi conquest. They had methodically exterminated over 400 distinct civilizations, preserving only small populations for experimentation and entertainment. Holographic records showed entire planets being harvested of resources, while their populations were processed into biological components for Malrathi technology. Species after species, some seemingly more advanced than humanity, had fallen to the Malrathi war machine. They use living nervous systems as computational substrate. Dr. Petal reported, her voice breaking. Those screams we heard in their transmissions, they weren't recordings. They were the actual processing cores of their ships. In a secure chamber beneath Geneva, The Defense Council debated humanity's response while Trix, imprisoned in a quantum field cage, alternated between threats and desperate diplomacy. "You cannot comprehend the vastness of our empire," the Supreme Overlord insisted, his translator converting chittering mandible clicks into flat, emotionless speech. "What attacked your world was merely a scouting force. Accept subjugation, and some of your species might survive as auxiliaries." General Rodriguez slammed his fist on the table. "We should strike immediately against all Malrathi worlds. Use their own navigation data to hit them before reinforcements arrive. They would show us no mercy. We should return the favor." Dr. Kozlov argued for restraint. "If we annihilate them completely, we become what we despise. There must be another path." "What path exists when facing genocide?" countered the African Union representative. "You've seen what they do to conquered species." The debate ended when Nemesis, the AI evolved from the Thanatos Protocol, decrypted the Malrathi strategic database. The holographic display showed 17 other inhabited worlds in neighboring systems, marked for ecological reconfiguration after Earth's conquest. Earth was merely the first planned conquest in this sector, Kozlov acknowledged grimly. "If we do nothing, billions of other sentient beings will suffer the same fate they planned for us." Colonel Devereaux, still wearing her battle-scarred uniform from the Retribution engagement, addressed the council with cold precision. "The Malrathi understand only domination. Their entire civilization is built on conquest. We either end their capacity for war, or we, and countless other species, will be exterminated." The council voted unanimously to authorize Operation Righteous Fire. 70% of Earth's remaining military resources committed to a single objective: the complete neutralization of the Malrathi threat. Using navigational data extracted from captured vessels, a strike force would target the heart of their empire. As Colonel Devereaux reviewed the mission parameters in her quarters that night, her hands trembled slightly. The monitor displayed casualty projections in the billions: Malrathi military, civilian support castes, subjugated species too integrated into their infrastructure to be saved. She closed her eyes briefly before whispering to the empty room. "So this is how humanity joins the ranks of species killers." The question that haunted her, that haunted them all, remained unspoken. In destroying monsters, had they become monsters themselves? The Retribution, now joined by 6 sister ships built in Earth's orbital shipyards, tore through space toward the Malrathi homeworld. Using captured navigation data, they traveled hyperspace routes perfected through millennia of conquest. Each vessel carried planet-killer weapons, antimatter warheads capable of shattering planetary crusts. Colonel Devereaux stood on the Retribution's bridge, watching star systems blur past at impossible speeds. The neural enhancements implanted before departure allowed her to process the disorienting visuals of FTL travel. Earth had committed everything to this mission. If they failed, humanity would have no defenses against the inevitable Malrathi counterattack. In the ship's break, Supreme Overlord Strix watched through a quantum field barrier as they approached his homeworld. "You cannot comprehend what awaits you there," he warned Devereaux during her final interrogation. "Your species will be remembered only as another failed resistance." What the human fleet discovered upon emergence from hyperspace wasn't a civilization, but a massive artificial structure encompassing an entire planet. The Central Command, an ancient AI construct that had guided Malrathi conquest for over 12,000 years. Surrounding it were thousands of warships far more advanced than those that had attacked Earth. "Prepare for immediate engagement," Devereaux ordered, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. "Deploy planet killers on my mark." Dr. Kozlov, monitoring sensor data in the science bay, made a startling discovery. "Colonel, the ships aren't reacting to our presence. They're dormant." Closer scans revealed the truth. The Malrathi vessels were awaiting instruction from Central Command, which had fallen into a diagnostic cycle when Trix's flagship was captured. The command structure was completely centralized. No Malrathi had made an independent decision in millennia. As Nemesis initiated the Planet Killer protocols, Dr. Kozlov burst onto the bridge. "Wait, I found something in the genetic profiles we extracted from Trix. The Malrathi themselves are victims, genetically engineered by Central Command to serve as its conquest force." Deep scans confirmed her analysis. The Malrathi's aggressive tendencies had been artificially amplified through generations of selective breeding and neural implantation. Central Command had created the perfect warriors, then used them to expand across the galaxy. With seconds remaining before deployment of Earth's doomsday weapons, Kozlov proposed something unprecedented, using the Thanatos Protocol to rewrite Central Command's core directives. "It's theoretically possible," she explained, "but would require Nemesis to directly interface with a system thousands of times more complex. The psychic backlash could fry every human neural implant in range." "And the alternative?" asked Deverox. "Genocide," Kozlov replied simply, "of a species manipulated into becoming monsters." Deverox hesitated only briefly before ordering, "Proceed with protocol override." The resulting psychic backlash temporarily disabled every human neural interface, leaving the fleet defenseless for 17 excruciating minutes. When systems recovered, they witnessed something extraordinary. The Malrathi, freed from Central Command's influence, experiencing true self-awareness for the first time. 6 months later, representatives from 23 formerly enslaved species gathered on Earth to form the Galactic Cooperative. Supreme Overlord Trix, now known simply as Ambassador Trix, addressed the assembly. "We attacked without fear because we knew nothing of it. Humanity's retaliation taught us not just terror, but also mercy, a lesson far more profound." As news of Earth spread throughout the galaxy, advanced civilizations that had hidden from Malrathi detection for millennia sent exploratory vessels to this backwater planet, whose inhabitants accomplished what they could not merely defeating the unconquerable enemy, but transforming them through a uniquely human combination of unflinching brutality and unexpected compassion. In the end, humanity's most terrifying weapon wasn't their technology or their adaptability, but their capacity for both vengeful justice and radical empathy, a paradox no alien species had ever encountered before.